Namaste. I am so glad to welcome you to another fabulous edition of Live, Love, Engage. Yeah, there I said it. It's going to be fabulous. I just know because I've already been having a wonderful conversation with today's guest, who is Dr. Susan Corso. So first off, I want to welcome you to Live, Love, Engage.
Thank you so very much, Gloria. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, and this is going to be an interesting conversation. I know it's one I've been looking forward to for a while. So let me tell you all about who Dr. Susan is. She is a metaphysician, an intuitive, and an author of both fiction and nonfiction. She has had a spiritual consulting practice for over 40 years, and her latest nonfiction are the 8 energy integrity workbooks, which teach applied practical knowledge of how your chakras reflect your past, how they can be changed in the present, and how to use your own human energy system to create your future. And so right there is why I was like, ooh, I want her on the show, because it's like, this is right up my alley. I'm fascinated by chakras. And so I thought we would start right off the bat with you sharing a little bit about what got you interested in exploring chakras and knowing all about them.
Well, I worked in a medical center for many years as the head of spiritual and energy medicine. And that happened because I knew a doctor who, when he would get stuck with his patients, he would put me on speakerphone in his office. And he would say, "Can you tell me what's going on with Gloria?" Right? I knew Gloria's name.
Yeah.
And Gloria was sitting there listening to me on the speaker, but that's all I knew. I didn't know what he thought. I didn't know how old she was. I didn't know anything about her. And I would tune into her body and I would start to talk about energy and how it was moving and what was happening. And I would say to him, "Well, you have diagnosed this, but the real problem isn't in her knees. The real problem in her knees is emotional. And the emotional problem in her knees is because of this. And once we clear up the abuse that's stuck in her knees, then her gut is going to calm down." But most doctors don't think like that. Well, every single time he called, and he did it for years, I was right.
Not surprised.
And it was a little uncanny, actually, to be sitting and writing, and then out of the clear blue sky, have your phone ring and say, "Can you tell me what's wrong with this person?" Maybe. But what the chakras actually are is this. Let's go backward. When a doctor goes to medical school, they study 11 systems. Skeletal system, circulatory system, respiratory system. Well, something makes that circulatory system circulate. And yes, of course, it's the pump of the heart, but it's a little more than that. And something makes that respiratory system respire. It's a little more than that. I would call that the life force. The chakras are the life force seen through a prism. And how they are distributed, the major ones in your body, are on the inside of your spine. And they're not like, most people view them as hockey pucks against your spine. No, that's not what they are. They're 3-dimensional spheres. And they turn and they move, and the colors get brighter and lesser. And it just depends on what's happening in a person's life. And those chakras generate your aura, which is the energy that surrounds your body. And everybody has it, whether you can see it or you can't. I can prove it to anyone by taking my palm and interrupting their own energy on their own hand. And everybody feels it, even the people who don't believe in energy. They go, that was hot. Well, yes, because everybody has energy. And I say that, and we're all sensitive to it to a degree, because every one of us has walked into a room and gone, "Oh, people have been fighting here. I got to get out of here." Right?
Yep.
So chakras began to be a language for me to express the invisible part of what was happening to a body. And for my money, 11 is not a mystical number. 12 is a mystical number. And so the 12th system that's missing from the body is the human energy system. Everybody has one. What we don't know, though, Gloria, which is so horrifying, is A, that we have it, B, that we can manage it, C, that it's useful.
Yeah, it is weird that we don't really comprehend that, and that doctors still really aren't, I think. Well, I would say I think some doctors are aware of it, but I think it's still not necessarily being taught in medical school. So I think it's things that they have to pick up elsewhere. And I mean, because you think about it, that who is it that is talking right now? Where is that energy coming from? It's not really my brain. So there is something, and as you said, we are all made of energy. We are not physical beings. None of us, nothing in this world is physical. We're all molecules or atoms that are moving so fast, depending on the speed, that's how we can see them. Before we go back into a little bit more of the chakras, though, I want to go back a little bit farther, because how did what was energy like? Has this always been something that you had, this gift of being able to, be able to diagnose people over the phone?
No, I was an intuitive from the time I was quite young, and I spent 20 years avoiding it, because as so often when you are intuitively sensitive, the things that you're sensitive to are the bad things. Right. When someone's going to die, when there's going to be a problem, because the negative energy that people experience, we feed. So it's much, much larger than, oh, you're going to get a hug at the end of that aisle in the grocery store, So there's that. And essentially, when I was 25, a friend of mine gave me a reading with a psychic for my birthday. She knew my name and she knew my birthday. And I walked through her door and she said, "Oh my God, you should be reading for me." Wow. I said, "What?" So one of the things she said in that reading was that I was a color healer in Egypt. Right. Okay. So my eyeballs dinged right off the ceiling. There were holes, like what? Anyway, I was meeting a friend for dinner. It was my 25th birthday. And after I was telling her about this, and after dinner, she said, "Well, we're right around the corner from East West Books, which is on Lower Fifth Avenue in New York. Why don't we go and look for color healing books and see if there's anything to this?" Right. So off we go to the bookstore, because you can't keep me from a bookstore. Books. I love books. So, okay, I'm good with that. We walk into this bookstore. We ask where there are books on color healing. And the guy points me to the back. And she and I, both of us are named Susan, stand in front of this bookshelf, and 5 books start to fall. Ooh. And one of them hits me in the forehead. And I turned to Susan and I said to her, Did you? Yeah. So we buy the books and we get on the train to go home. And I'm about halfway through the first one, maybe 2 hours later. And I look up and I say to her, "I know this. I already know this. Wow. I know how to work with energy. I know how to work with chakras." Now, what I didn't have, and what so few of us do, which is why I think I'm coming forward with this teaching now, is we don't have the vocabulary for it. I had a doctor call me and ask if I could help a client of hers recently, a patient of hers. And I said, yes. The woman had a pain in her stomach, and she'd been to every single doctor in the whole wide world. And the only clue she had was that she was waking up at 3:37 in the morning every day. I said, okay. So I listened to her for about 30 minutes and I thought, wait, something's happening here. There's that 3:37 in the morning. If you look at the Chinese medicine hours, is lung, and lung is grief. I said, "What are you grieving?" She said, "How do you know that?" And I said, yeah, the explanations for how I know this stuff, I can't give you, but I can tell you that you're grieving or you're trying. It's weird. You're trying to grieve something that isn't dead. Is that what's happening? Well, sure. Here's what happened. He then fills in the blank for me. Her mother has had dementia. It's getting much, much, much less worse. The last time she saw her mother, which was 3 months ago when the ache in her stomach started, her mother didn't recognize her. I said to her, you're trying to grieve what's not dead. Humans can't do that. Now, that doesn't mean you can't get conscious about the grieving. You can. But literally within a week, it was gone. Because it's energy that gets stuck. And when it got named, it got unstuck. And so she was able to, watch beaches and cry, which is what she needed to do.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh, what a great story. You are a storyteller. I love that.
I am.
But it's good. And hey, that's how humans relate to each other. I mean, we've been doing it for millions of years, frankly. So talk to me a little bit and share with our audience here a little bit about how chakras are the key to long-term wellness. How does that fit in?
Let's just talk about the common cold. Not exactly life-threatening most of the time. But when you actually start to have that scratchy throat and your nose gets stuffy and you're in the office and it's 4:00 in the afternoon, you think, I cannot put one foot in front of another for one more minute, let alone figure out how I get home, right? That has started happening certainly weeks, if not months, before you have the physical symptoms. And the reason I say that is this: all illness begins in spirit. So if human beings are fourfold, which is how I understand them, in order of density, or reverse density, body is the densest, heart, mind, spirit. Your spirit needs to get that cold. Why? Well, maybe you need a mental health day or a pajama day, or I don't feel like going to work, so I'm not day. Right?
Right. Yes. Been there.
But we're not taught to heed that spirit message, right? So then it becomes an emotional message. And the emotional message is, oh, I don't feel like it. I don't wanna, right?
Yeah.
And it's slow. And then comes the mental message. Oh, I have a meeting with that guy today. I really hate it that he interrupts me all the time, right? So then you have the mental thing. And then an hour before the meeting, you start to get a cold. That's an awful lot of steps that you, as the owner of this life force and system, are able to tune into, figure out, and maybe honor when you get the emotional thing. Why do I not feel like going to work? What is going on here? Usually I love my job, right? If you ask that question and you tune into your body, your throat's going to be tight. You're going to go, what do I need to say? Or what have I not said? Right? Because chakras, it's always, you're always doing something you shouldn't do or not doing something you should do, basically, because they're physical. So they're binary, right? Because our reality here is binary. So if you have the chance and the quiet and the discipline to tune in to what's going on, you don't have to get the cold. You can actually take care of it now by, I have an energy system. My energy's flagging. What's going on? What's going on? And we have to ask ourselves that all the time.
Mm. That's good. And I absolutely relate to that because I have definitely learned how to tune into that and ask questions like, oh, why is my back bothering me today? What's going on with that? And thankfully I haven't had colds, but I know I have. And I think I want to say that, I don't know if maybe I read this somewhere, but it was like and I think it was probably a flippant thing, but it was like, yeah, so you got a cold. So what are you trying to get out of? but in a way, but actually there is a lot of truth to that. It's like, yeah, what are you trying to get? Maybe not necessarily always get out of, but where is it maybe that you do just need a break? You do need a break from something. Yeah.
And is that cold actually saying no to something?
Yeah.
You don't get a cold in your knees, you get a cold in your nose. Well, your nose mystically represents intuition. What's your intuition trying to tell you? Oh, it's in your throat. That's your throat chakra. That's about expression. What do I need to say? Or what do I need to hush about right now? Right? You start to ask those questions and you start to be able to go, oh, I know how to manage my wellness because I'm starting at source. I'm not starting with symptom.
Right.
Western medicine, as amazing as it is, and believe me, if I have a broken leg, I want somebody to set it.
Yes.
No question.
Right.
It's not that I'm not going to doctors. I'm going to doctors. But there's a parallel path that you can take that says, what is essentially the question we're asking is, what is the meaning of this? And what is the meaning of this to me? So I think this is how I've stayed fascinated with this work for 40 years, is even if I was in a room with 40 people, all of whom had broken their knee, they would have broken their knees for different reasons. They would have had it wired inside themselves in a different way. And the important thing isn't that I know why you broke your knee. It's important that I know why I broke my knee. Right. Which is a completely different thing. So, threading through, that's why I called my workbooks the energy integrity books. I don't mean integrity like in the sense of a moral superhero.
Right.
I mean integrity in the sense of integer, as in wholeness. You are whole unto yourself, and your system is giving you information about you all the time. If you'll pay attention. Like if you just leave the mail in the mailbox, you never get the bills, right?
That's right.
Until the postman rings the bell and says, excuse me, but you have to get rid of this because I have more.
Yeah.
Right? So we have to open the mailbox. What's the message? What are we being invited to collaborate on creating that makes us well?
Thinking so many things and trying to figure out, bringing up lots of stuff and even just memories of me. Like I remember when my kids were little and I broke my ankle and dislocated it too, which was interesting. And yet I still now see, reflecting back later, I still found myself even on crutches, like fixing dinner at one point, because, and it's like, so I don't think I quite got the message that I was probably needed to, let other people take care of me for change instead of always being the caregiver. But, some lessons take longer to learn. Get there. It's okay.
Well, and some have more undoing, right? That was about your role as a mother, your value as a parent, a partner. I mean, that sure, it looks like you broke and dislocated your ankle. That's the least of it.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
You had a lot to unpack there.
Yeah. Yeah. What is like the first thing that let's say someone wants to start learning more about the chakras, what is something important that could maybe set them on the path other than what you've already shared with us today? Is there something else?
Well, this is perfect because I have a gift for your listeners.
Okay.
I have a landing page called chakras.susancorso.com. And on it is a digital download that is free. You don't have to put your email address in, nothing. You just get to download it because it's pretty. And what it details is what I call the chakra less mores. And every chakra has a thing to do less of, and every chakra has a thing to do more of. You can find them on one piece of paper and you practice. So if, let's just say, it's first thing in the morning and you notice that your solar plexus is tight, your diaphragm is tight. If you looked at your less more sheet, the less is controlling less, and the more is encouraging more. So you would ask yourself, is this something to let go, or is this something to add? Do I need to go to work and encourage my team because they're feeling disheartened and they're unhappy? And is that what this message is? Or do I need to stop trying to control something that it really is something bigger trying to happen? And so by knowing which is a less and which is a more, which chakra, which you will tune into by your own sensations, and you'll have to get used to paying attention to them, right? Like, what's going on? And the other thing I can say is this. Chakras are colored because it's the life force through a prism, right? So they go from red to rose, bottom of the spine to top of the head. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet, rose. One of the most important things about chakras is this. If you were just to play middle C on a piano, you would have a note, not a song.
Right.
Just a note. One chakra by itself is fine. But the important thing is that they make a song. And your chakras make a song of you. And my chakras make a song of me. So are my chakras singing the song that I need them to sing today? And one way to make sure they're connected is to simply say the names of the colors, because the words have a vibration to them. So you start and you just breathe red until you feel red. And then you breathe orange and you feel orange all the way through rose. And what that will do is help you keep them connected, because their communication is really what matters. It's also one of the reasons that if, for example, you had a problem in a particular chakra, I am fond of saying, particularly to doctors, listen, if somebody comes into the emergency room with a gunshot wound, do you poke it? No, you do not. What you do is you work with the tissue around it. So I never, ever, when I do healing work for chakras, work in the chakra that's hurting. I work in the one above it and I work in the one below it. So it's supported. And so it understands that it has something to connect to on both sides. And chakras have fronts and backs, right? The chakra in the front is about your everyday life. The same chakra toward the back is about your past. So you are sensitive to your heart chakra, let's say. Are you feeling it in the front of your body, like by your sternum? Or are you feeling it between your shoulder blades? Like, what's going on? Is the past operating here? Many years ago, I met somebody named Maureen who I really didn't like. And since then, I've never liked anybody named Maureen. which I understand is the silliest thing ever. Right? Sorry, Maureen, wherever you are. But I know about the Maureen pattern. So I'm not mean to Maureens, right? I'm just not. I just was in a situation where I met a Maureen who I didn't like. Well, if somebody's reminding me of Maureen, the back of my chakra is going to hurt, not the front. I'm going to go, what in my past is informing the moment?
Right.
Do I like it? And if I do, great. Like, oh, this reminds me of the day that we went to the beach and it was really fun. And it was cool. That's what memory's for. But if it's, it's worth looking at. And I think that's the point. I think that chakras are an energetic way to know yourself. And that's what's the most important thing. You know, I was impressed by the name of your book and your podcast, Live, Love, Engage. Well, doesn't there have to be a whole you to actually follow that instruction?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Part of that is understanding your own energy system and the effect that it has. Right? It's energy half the time that ruins Thanksgiving.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's not what people are saying.
Right.
It's what it's the fact that you suddenly are 8 or 12 again, right? With your own children sitting at the table with you.
Yeah.
Right. So it's an investigative tool. And the more you work with it, the more it will tell you.
Love that. If someone is listening to this and they want to be able to start doing that and doing this, really, paying attention, is there any way that they could get it wrong?
Oh, what a really good question. No one's ever asked me that. As in the sense of hurting themselves?
Probably. I would think.
No.
Yeah.
But I do very strongly say to people who are new at this and excited and enthusiastic about it, I've been doing this for more than 40 years. Don't you go working in somebody else's energy system without knowing what you're doing. Get help, get a consult. Don't, share your journey together. Do the work together. Yes. So sure. Can you confuse, for example, let's just say your 6th chakra, which is in your forehead, right? And your 7th chakra, which is at the top of your head. This is indigo. This is violet. Well, indigo is that dark blue that no one ever can figure out what color it is.
Right.
Right. And violet is sort of a bright purple. And if you're not, like if you're standing in the grocery store line and trying to figure this out, you could confuse them and start to work in your 7th chakra and really need to work in your 6th. But because they all talk to each other, they're going to understand and they're just going to move the energy that you're working with to where it needs to be. Very similar to Reiki.
Yeah.
You can't really hurt anybody with Reiki, but if somebody doesn't want Reiki, my cat, Smooch, she doesn't want Reiki. No, thanks. She pings it right back at me. No, Mom. Okay.
Yeah. My cat's like that too. Same things like, meow.
Not clear. So no, you can't really hurt yourself. And I have never had anyone work with them for malintent to actually hurt someone deliberately, like in the sense of sorcery. No.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate that. And I'm sure our viewers will feel better about that as well. And listeners. What are you curious about right now?
In the world?
Sure. It's open-ended wherever you want.
What am I curious about? What a great question. I am curious about how we have disconnected our sense of responsibility from one another so absolutely thoroughly. And I have a theory about it, but I'm not sure it's accurate. I think we have taken polarity, which is the scientific basis of our planet,
Right.
day and night, and turned it into polarization. If you don't, there's a scene in Act 5 of Taming of the Shrew where Petruchio and Kate are walking to her father's house. And he says to her, "That's the moon." And she says, "It's not. Verily, it is the sun." No, it's the moon. Well, she figures out that he is just going to contradict her until she agrees with him. So one day she says to him finally, "You're right, Buster. It's the moon. And so it shall be for as long as you say so." "Well, now I say it's the sun." "Well, then it must be the sun," she says. It is a very serious demonstration of the practice of non-resistance, right? And unfortunately, human beings don't not do things very well, right? Whatever you do,
Yes.
don't think about the Statue of Liberty.
Right. Yes. Exactly.
There she is, right?
Yeah.
Instead, what I wonder about and what I'm curious about is how we are going to reconnect to the value in one another. And the only way I have come to answer that question for myself so far is we're going to do it one person at a time. Because it's going to be your realization on Friday and mine on Tuesday and so-and-so's next week that eventually fills up the account and we will be connected to one another again. But we have learned to disconnect because we don't know how to listen, and we don't know how to listen to one another. But more importantly, we don't know how to listen to ourselves.
Yeah.
And that's why I think energy work and chakra work is so important, because it is all about listening to yourself. If I could, you know what, I would put a disc in every person under the age of 7 right now that they understood about energy systems. Like they would get it like that magical download.
Yeah.
Because they would change it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And I 100% agree with you, because I, for years, did not take my intuition seriously. I would discount it, and and then of course it bites you in the butt, as I like to say.
Oh, yes.
when you ignore it.
Right,
and
you are.
Now I have come to really appreciate it and embrace it, and it's definitely what I feel that I want to be able to do too, is just keep shining the light, keep spreading the light, keep doing things like this, doing this podcast. I've done this now for 2.5 years, and I may have guests on who are doing the same thing, but everybody comes at it from a different path. We all have different experiences and different things, and so I don't mind doing that, because also, I don't know, I'm sure you've probably experienced this as well, is that a lot of times we have to listen to things or hear things like several times before it gets into our head.
Yes, ma'am.
I know for me, I've had to do that.
Well, and I also think that, you can go, people love to ask me where they can study advanced metaphysics. And I always laugh, because there's only kindergarten metaphysics. It's real simple. But applying metaphysics, that everybody's probably in the 2nd grade now, maybe some of us in the 3rd grade, but that's about it.
Yeah.
And we are applying it is what's hard. And because it either applies all the time or not at all, right? Either everything has meaning or nothing has meaning. Well, as far as I'm concerned, everything has meaning. But it's the meaning that you give it.
Right.
The meaning that I give it. What meaning do I want things to have?
Yeah, that's what we have to come up with, isn't it? Oh, and I would love for you to share, because you told me this before we started the interview, the definition of metaphysics in 5 words. I think it was what it is.
This is my definition of metaphysics.
Yes, your definition.
That's right.
I
You're
love it.
God, I'm God, go. And if you can actually practice that, if every person I encounter, I can say in my own heart, you're God, including all the ones I disagree with,
right,
who are really in a long line lately, right?
Yes.
Including them, right? If you're God, then everybody's God. It's not your God except,
right?
That's not, no. So you're God, I'm God, go. It's a lifelong practice. It is a lifelong practice because you know who we treat least as God? Ourselves.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes.
Ourselves. Why? Because we're not taught to value each other or ourselves that way. But if we do, when we do, and we do it to greater and lesser degrees, there are people, we call them celebrities or people that we admire. There's Beyonce and there's, the Nobel Prize winners and there's Oprah and there, that, right? But there's also the guy across the street 5 years ago who saw me trying to take my garbage out. And the garbage cans are so big and I'm tiny that it took me 45 minutes to drag it down the driveway. And so he came over the next day and he knocked on the door and he said to me, Dr. Corso, do you want me to take the recycling and stuff out for you? I watched you do that yesterday and it almost killed me. And I said, oh my God, seriously? Yes. And he's taken my garbage out every week since. Oh. Is that not the sweetest thing? It's the guy that sees that.
Yeah.
And says, well, it's a piece of cake for me. I take my own out. I just walk across the street and take yours out. What's the big deal?
Right.
Amazing that was, right? Well, we can all do that for everybody on our own level.
Absolutely. And that's all it takes. It just takes doing that little bit. It's that ripple effect or the butterfly effect or whatever. It just starts with being kind to one another, being kind to someone, in your neighborhood. It doesn't have to be, far away. But if you want to be generous to someone far away, that's fine too. But absolutely.
Right. But here's the other thing. Just because I can't make a felt sense difference in Ukraine, because I'm not there to take somebody's garbage out.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that I can't make a difference. Right. I can always pray for the people in Ukraine, right? Which I'm doing.
Yeah.
But I can't go take their garbage out. I'm not there.
Right.
But I am here. Right. And so when his kid broke his leg, what did he do? He called me and he said, Dr. Corso, you have to pray. I said, okay, deal. Pray. Did healing work on the kid? His leg's fine. He's playing sports again. Because that's where we could meet.
Right.
And he still takes the garbage out every week.
Oh, bless him.
Amen to that.
Oh, very nice. Is there anything that I haven't asked that I should have that you'd like to share with our audience?
A good question. There's one thing I'd like to add, and that's this. When you introduced me, you said I wrote fiction and nonfiction. I do. I write fiction books, though, about people like you and me. People who are trying to live conscious lives, who are looking for the meaning, who are trying to make the good. So they're books for our clan, our soul group, and I would love it if people would begin to understand that that's why I write them, because I couldn't find any books about conscious people. Or people who wanted to be conscious, people who know what it means when they say, I'm going to pray about it, and they don't have to explain it to anybody else. People who know what they mean when they say, yeah, I have to unpack that. Right. That's too big for me to just have a conversation about right now. Oops, that's a trigger. Let me figure this out and come back to you. Yeah. Right. So the people who are trying to live the way we live and succeeding, to some degree and failing to some degree.
Right.
Right. But I write mysteries, I write romance, I write historical fiction,
Oh, cool.
but for conscious people.
I love it.
Just that.
Perfect. Well, if someone wants to check that out, where can they find these lovely books?
Well, you can go to susancorso.com and find anything you like about them, because that's my fiction site. But about my spiritual work, you can go to iampersand.org. It's IAMPERSAND. Many years ago, I started saying to people, the most important word in any language is and. And a friend of mine who's a peace activist and an artist made a piece of art for me. And I started saying to people, do you ampersand? Are you trying to live your life in an inclusive way? No exceptions, including the people we disagree with still, right?
Yeah.
And I agree. I think that that's true. I think that the more of us who are inclusive, who are saying yes and not or, it's not you or me or your God or my God or your house or my house or your nation or my, no. That's not going to work anymore because it's, as my friend Melissa says, there's no planet B, which is correct.
Yeah.
Right. No, we all live on the same planet and there's no or in any of those borders.
Yeah.
So we're gonna reconnect to one another and fix it.
Absolutely.
That's in the cards. That's how it has to be, or else we're just not going to be here anymore.
That's right.
And I don't think that that's threatening. I mean, humanity will reincarnate and something else will happen. I'm not worried about that.
Right.
But I think that in any given moment, if there's something you can do to make life better for yourself or someone else, just do it. It's easier if you can. If you can.
Yeah. And do your best. And I love when you're talking about borders, what always reminded me was the fact that, when astronauts went to the moon and they look back at the planet Earth, there's no borders on the planet Earth. That's all construct, made up stuff, changes all the time. And so, we're all on this big blue marble together. So let's make it work and protect it. So,
which is why your advice is so good. Live, love, engage. That's your work. Do it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you. This has been awesome. See, I hope all of you listening and watching felt the same way I did when I started, that I knew it was going to be an amazing conversation. You are a wonderful, wonderful, wise woman. And
thank you.
I am grateful to have met you and to have had you on the show today. So I wish you all the best and continued good work. And I'll have all of your links and all of that in the show notes for anyone if you're, driving somewhere listening to this right now. Don't worry.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Gloria. It was a delight.
Yeah. And my pleasure. And again, thank all of you for listening, for watching. I so appreciate you and so grateful for reviews. And if you enjoyed this, make sure that you share a friend, invite someone to get to know the show as well. And that would be wonderful. I would so appreciate that. And until next time, as always, I encourage you to live fully and engage authentically. And don't hit the stop button before you're ready to stop recording. So I'm going to just say it one more time, just in case you missed it. Live fully, love deeply, and engage authentically.